We are rolling, and welcome to Flutter-MX, unboxing the red pill. I use the term advisedly. We'll get to that. What are we doing? Prosaically, we are working through this, which is the Flutter-MX starter repo. Now, that means you've been watching some of my videos or read about Matrix on the Closurians Slack, which is highly recommended. And you're curious about finally programming yourself using Matrix instead of just watching someone else program it. Either that or you're possibly folding your laundry and you need some background noise. And a video is perfect for that. But that was the best compliment I've gotten so far on my videos. So this is the repo, and you can actually just work through this on your own. I think it's pretty accurate, but you get a bit more flavor from the video perhaps. And at the end, we're going to go beyond the repo unboxing, and we're going to get into the actual porting of this is the Flutter app. This is the Dart version of the counter app, which you can actually see over here. I launched this before starting the video, and surprise, surprise, it counts. And but this is good because on top of it, Kernighan and Ritchie started Hello World. If you're wondering why this gentleman is over here, they were the ones that created that. I think he was following a tradition himself, but he certainly popularized it. Hello World with Kernighan and Ritchie. The C programming language, highly recommended book. Just beautifully written documentation. So that was great. That had editing, compiling, linking, and pulling in a standard library in order to display Hello World on the console. We're going to go one step further to cover the reactive issue, and that is have a control that the user can operate that will change a state variable and have a display of that same variable magically refresh. So that's what we're up to. And I mentioned the red pill in passing. If you've been following Matrix, you know I've always poo-pooed the idea of a comparison with the movie. I always say, forget the movie. Okay, so because the name Matrix was chosen because of its maternal root, its generative root. The definition I found was matrix is something from which something else originates. Wow, that's so cool. Self-referential definitions. And so that's great, and that's why I chose the word. Getting ready to make another video. This video, actually, I was going to make a joke about the red pill, and I decided I didn't know which was which. And so I looked it up, and to my astonishment, the definition of the red pill included the willingness to undertake an unsettling or potentially life-changing experience. Whoa. And I kind of like that because Matrix does fly in the face of most reactive libraries. There are some that are like Matrix. MobX has similarities. Hopla Javelin has a lot of similarities. Binding, Scala. Solid.js talks about fine granularity, which is one of the keys. So Matrix isn't unique in that sense, but when we go down the list, we got the fine granularity, which is an advantageous divide and conquer. We get to write small formulas for individual properties, and out of that comes an emergent accomplishment such as this algebra app, which is got all sorts of capabilities. I'm not going to go through all this, but it's a big app. It's 80,000 lines of Lisp and 1,000 different properties with formulas, and it's super substantial. And here's another one. Ask Hacker News, who's hiring browser that I did, and this is actually JavaScript Matrix, which I ported Matrix to JavaScript as well as Clojure. It started on Common Lisp. So it's property to property, but you can build big things with it. It's out of this individual property definitions comes the emergent property of a large application. That didn't sound good. I didn't like that. We'll have to edit that out. So what else is there? Besides the granularity, then there's this transparency. So subscriptions, there's no subscribe, there's no publish. You just write natural code. When you use other properties, you get a subscription behind the scenes, and then you get updated automatically when you need to be. So that's all done transparently. By the same token, when I decide that a control, like a button on the screen, is able to mutate some state, I just use the Matrix API to set or update a property, and that takes care of everything. That one line of code that says update this property, and then the whole thing propagates throughout the application. So, and again, it's transparent. And let's see. Oh, well, I guess I've kind of covered that, but there's no separate store. All right, so we don't have the boilerplate of Flux, Redux, even Reframe, which is an excellent version of Flux. You don't have, it has its own boilerplate. So as I said, you just read properties and write properties, and the underlying matrix system takes care of identifying the dependencies and taking care of state changes. What else do we have? Well, okay, global reach. Did I kind of mention that? That any, well, maybe not. So this is definitely scandalous. You talk about encapsulation. No encapsulation. Any property is free to reach out across the entire application, find some other object or widget, and take a value from that widget and use it in its own derivation. So we have derived properties with unlimited scope. By the same token, a control, such as the button we see on our sim here, is able to reach out across the application and update any state. So both those have to be horrifying to most people who believe in separation of concerns and isolation and encapsulation and testability and things like that. So again, if you dive into Matrix, be ready for some changes. Okay, what else is there? Well, yeah, this one is, I mean, it's nice, but and it's important. The extensibility of Matrix. So we write our Matrix app using Flutter, and we have all these rules and properties, and everything's working great. And then suddenly we want to make an AJAX request, or we want to use local storage, or we want to use a rendering, a charting library, which is its own. We're going to pull in this charting library, and it has its own parameters, and they're not reactive because I'm Matrix, they're not Matrix. So what we can do, however, is we can very quickly create an object that wraps the rendering library or local storage or whatever the case may be, using and give it the matrix reactive. Let it play well with others, if you will, in the reactive sense. And I do quite a bit of that. So those are the changes. That's the red pill. But we were supposed to be doing an installation of the Flutter MX starter, so let's get on with it. I'm going to move this out of the way until we need to do the port later on, and I'm going to come back here and start following the instructions. This is basically the way I like to work, is have something that I can clone and then convert to my own particular application. So what are we going to do here? Now that was making unicorn, but we're going to make our own application. We're going to call it counter-fmx. Let's see how that goes. All right, and I'm cd into it, get rid of the existing git, because we're going to create our own before we're done, if I remember to do that. And now we're ready to start transforming the code. Now the code we cloned, the starter app, was made using the Closure Dart quick start. By the way, I always forget to mention this. Yeah, this is something I assume that everyone has worked through. It's not nothing, so it takes some effort. If you haven't installed Flutter, you're going to have to do that. If you don't have Xcode, we're working on iOS, you're going to need to do that. But anyway, get through all that, get your first Closure Dart samples running, and then come back here to Flutter MX starter, if you would be so kind. So, oh yeah. So anyway, if you do that, what you're going to do is you're going to end up with an application called Acme. And being a big Roadrunner fan and Wile E. Coyote fan, I of course have kept the Acme. So the Acme you see here that I'm going to start renaming to our own library. And watch this. I'm going to use an underscore now instead of a. All right. So there's our first little twist when it comes to Closure versus versus Flutter and Dart and even CLJS and Java and things like that, which is where our source code likes hyphens, which is known as kebab case and listplan. Our file names are like for compatibility with the underlying libraries, languages like Java and Dart use the underscore. So that's one little twist that will catch up a lot of people, and it still gets me every once in a while. I still use a hyphen in the file name. So anyway, we've accomplished that legendary trick, and next we need to find, and we're going to use a command for this, a sed command for this, that will go through the source code and change all the acmes to counter-fmx. We could do that, but there are only three. They're in namespaces, as you might imagine. Again, here we use the hyphen for the kebab case, and away we go. That takes care of depcdn as well, which pulls in libraries. And are we ready for this? We are. That command go okay? You know, a lot of times I'm making these videos and I forget to look and see if the command actually worked. So here we go. This is a command. This is the closure Dart is going to hydrate our project now with all sorts of necessary stuff, given what it sees in the depcdn that I just mentioned. The depcdn being the sort of definition file. It goes along with pubspec.yaml in terms of the Flutter stuff that we're using. So okay, so it seems happy, and it sounds like I believe we can actually give this thing a run. We've got the simulator going. Well, that won't hurt to do that. Well, we can copy that. It doesn't mind if it's already running, and away we go. Oh, this is going to take a while. So while that's running, what am I going to do? I'm going to open this wonderful project we just created. And I think it's going to help us out by neatly offering counter-fmx. The directory can have a hyphen in the name, that doesn't matter. Okay, so yeah. Oh, by the way, here's that depcdn I was talking about. This is where we pull in fluttermx. And this name, you can see now, that used to say acme.main. Now it says counter-fmx.main. So that the sed worked. Glad to see that. And we can look at the source. The application being built right now is this hello world, which is the one you saw on the page with Mr. Kernighan. And if Flutter programmers will recognize material app, theme data, scaffold, center column. When Matrix wraps a library, be it HTML or CooksDo or Flutter, we try to look as much like the wrapped language as possible, so that the documentation, the main advantage is that the documentation of Flutter is the documentation you can use for FlutterMX. I'm constantly diving into the Flutter documentation to get my app built. And here we have, at long last, Mr. Kernighan running ourselves on our own sim. So to a certain extent, we've gotten our, we've sort of completed the unboxing. We now have the project running. It's counter-fmx. It's still the old application. We're now free to start hacking on this and turn it into our own application, which is what we're going to do now. So this is going to turn into, and we can work right in main in this case, just so it looks as close as possible to the Dart version. I'm going to close this and give it some more room, slide up, find the material app, and that's where we're going to start. Now, unfortunately, I have to, I'm referencing the widgets library package. We're going to have to grab the material package. And I leave all these steps in so you can get a feel for what it's like to actually program with this. So this is how we pull in a new package. And this, we didn't need too much FlutterMX or Matrix, but we're going to need a lot more. So I have this prepared ahead of time because this would be a bit much for you to watch me type. And okay, we can sort of shrink this up now. And okay, I got the row in there. Good. I didn't have that in there for a while. So okay, so now I think we're ready to start building our application. Now, where's so our console is down here. It doesn't care because I haven't really changed anything yet, but it just did a rebuild because I went from using the IDE to the terminal, and when IntelliJ sees that, it saves, and we get an automatic hot reload. So, well, we can try that. So here's Material app, and well, no, we got some stuff to type. I'm going to start looking over at, if you don't mind, looking over at the Dart code. We don't really, where this title goes, I've never figured out. Maybe it shows up on the HTML version. So we got the title, but this is important. We do need the theme. Now in this, again, I'm going to swipe some, I'm going to Shift Command V, right? Okay. Where's our theme? Theme data, color scheme. Is this our bad boy? Okay. So yeah, you don't want to watch me type this. So this is, here I've got Material app. You say, hey, Ken, that's a hyphen. That's not camel case. Right. This is a Flutter MX wrapper, a proxy for a Material app. It knows how to make a Material app. And the runfx app includes code to render this proxy object into an actual Material app. This is very simple. This just does a run app, a standard Flutter run app with wraps a stateful and a stateless widget around this Material app for hot reload, to support hot reload. So let's stop yapping and save. And okay, so that kind of actually worked because we didn't get any compiler errors, but there's nothing to see. So let's go ahead and add, what am I adding? We're adding the home page. Okay. So they have the home page off in a function, which is something I don't normally do, but let's copy, let's when in Rome, or at least let you see that we're gonna jazz up the title a little bit here, Flutter, and do some branding, have the title say what it is and not just talk about home pages. So that's great, except we don't have a function named homepage. And there's probably another. Flutter folks are also concerned about the fact that I didn't use the home keyword. Yeah, I'm going to get in some trouble for this, and I could be talked out of it. But I'm highly partial to the HTML approach of parent, children. That's it. Everything is parents and children. So I love that uniformity. And so in this case, only in the Material app and the scaffold and maybe one other place did I mess around with the syntax. So, because again, I really want things to work the way they normally work in the original Dart version. So we got, what do we got here? I'm down to making the scaffold. And the scaffold is way down here. All right. So what does the scaffold have? The scaffold has an app bar. And here in this first map, which are these variables are going to go straight through to Flutter, we're going to use camel case. But when we get into making an app bar, and now we're using a Flutter MX widget, we get back into kebab case. And I toyed with, let me think a second here. App bar, where was it? Background color, okay. Now here again, I get a fancy expression. I got to get some context. And I believe I have this one set up as well because again, it's another background color theme of inverse primary. No, that's the text guy. Here we go. Okay, so now we got our background color. And do we have a title? Let's sneak in a title. And this time I'm going to remember that it has to be a text widget, which I rarely remember. And I'm going to save. And boom, okay, we're starting to get an application coming together here. We got our app bar, so that's good. And now, again, even though you were probably expecting me to type in the keyword body to do the body, I'm just going to type in another kid. The first child will be, and I'm just copying over now from the Dart version, center, okay, column. Okay, now here I need main axis alignment, center, column, main axis alignment. Just shout out when you see me make those typos. Center. All right, good. Yeah. Okay, and now we can. Now here, let's just use a standard Flutter widget. We're not going to use a FMX widget proxy. We're going to use the actual real deal. You have the button n times, slightly abbreviated. All right, and let's save that and see why it's upset. Main axis alignment. That's a good example, by the way, of how our errors get caught. So just took me an unfortunate amount of time for me to spot that. So okay, so we've now got some text on the screen, and now we're getting ready for the reactive domain. So we're going to have another text, but this time we're going to use FMX budget because we're going to get into reactive stuff here. But first, we're going to do some pretty standard matrix, Flutter, and again, this time we're looking for the text theme. Well, let's see. Yes, all right. Theme of text theme, headline medium, okay. And now all we need is some text. And we'll cheat for a second, we'll just say 0. And okay, we got that. But what we really wanted to do was have some state that we're going to display. And the question is, where are we going to keep this state? How about right on the field that is going to be our counter? So we call this name, counter. This is a pattern that I follow, and it makes it possible to do some neat macrology. It makes it very easy to reference these guys. We'll talk about that as we go. CI 0. CI is for input, a cell input, which means the user is going to be able to change it. So it's not something that we can compute. We can't have formulas all the way down. Some information has to come from outside the matrix. And this will be one of them. And now that I have some state, instead of having a hard-coded 0, I can just say str to make it a string, and then I'm going to spell it out, mget me value. And that should be good. And it should look really similar because it's still 0. And now what we need is to start, hey, we're coming in for our landing here, is we need the scaffold to also have a floating action button. And this time I'm going to indent. So the indentation will get out of control if I don't do a line break there. So now we're going to use, again, a matrix proxy. And what does he want? He wants, we don't really need this, but for completeness sake, just to show that we're doing the same things that the pre-built app does, increment, we're going to have a tooltip that you'll never see. And now the excitement, on pressed. We have a nice macro to make Dart callbacks work. This guy doesn't take any parameters. And now we get to do our reactivity. So what happens when they click on the button? We do an update. The bang means it's destructive. We're going to go find the counter. FMU means find up, so we can avoid cycles. The property we're going to update is the value. And what are we going to do? How are we going to update it? We're going to ink it. All right. Let's see. How we get, oh, okay. So that went through. And, oh, okay. I always forget the icon. Let's see if it works. All right. And now our icon is going to be a child of the floating action button. And you can say M's that icon widget. And again, we're just doing native Flutter now. Add. Okay, beautiful. So now we have actually completed the exercise of, first of all, working through the repo instructions to get the Kernighan Hello World up, and then creating the counter app from scratch. What was the next? I promised that we would do the do full cycle. We want to do a git init. Okay, this will and I'll grab into a new terminal so I can do this. Boom. All right, it fell for that. And what's our next step? Well, I don't show it, but it's gh repo create. So we're actually going to push this thing up to GitHub. What do I want to do? I want to push an existing local repo. Okay, path, good. Sounds good. Kenny Tilton, love it. Description, fmx, starter, cloned, or something. I don't know. And public, so y'all can follow along. Add a remote, sure. Yeah. Yeah. All right. And now if you head over to github.com, Kenny Tilton, there should be a repo there. And in your case, that would be your new Flutter MX based application. So away we go. We have done that, but what I'd like to do is have a little bit of fun and start doing some extending. Start extending this. Let's have that counter also include a row. I'm going to steal this so you don't have to watch me type. All right, and let's space evenly instead. I got a kick out of space evenly. I don't know why. And what do we want? What we want to do is we're going to map v fn. What we're going to do is we're going to show one little widget for each count. All right, and we got this handy. Let's display one of these for each count. It will actually be using the I property. And what are we mapping over? Range. MGUT, FMU, counter, value. All right, let's see if this works. I never know what I forget. Oh, we got to jump back over here. Okay, so that worked. Boom. Okay, so that's great. So what I've added is also important in reactive land. I think I mentioned the idea of the matrix. The mother was that it's generative. So here, as the count increases, we increase the number of children icons with that add button. So that's pretty good. But let's keep going here. Let's see what happens as the count increases. We should finally get to finally get to some overflow. So what we can do is we can say, you know what, let's put a limit on how far we can go with this. So I'm going to bring this counter along here. I'm going to come up here to the onPress guy. I'm going to make this a formula because we're now computing stuff here. And we're going to say when that value is less than 3, well, when less than that value, 3, you always get these things, I always get these things backwards. Then we're going to have a callback. Now, if you're puzzled, if you don't know your Flutter, I'm not surprised. The way we disable a button is to make the onPressed value nil. Null, pretty scary, right? But let's see what happens. Let's see if it stops. 1, 2, 3, and oh, it's no longer doing anything. Okay, so that works. But there's a problem here. It doesn't look disabled, does it? Well, turns out that Flutter is a very cool library, and they thought of everything. So we can have disabled elevation 1. It turns out is a good way to show you something, but you can still tell that it's disabled. So we go boom, boom. Now watch the shadow. Boom. Oh, wow. So, okay, that worked. But we might say, hey, look at that plus. It's still dark. That doesn't look disabled. The shadow is the only thing. Not a problem. We can say foreground color. And we could sort of do the same thing about making it gray or something when the value gets, we could kind of steal this code. I'm sorry. Boom. And just say, when it's, we say m/colors dot gray, and we say when not. So we're all right. Okay. Okay, so now it looks really totally disabled, but we have a dry problem here. And what we really meant to do, and if you've seen my TTS demos, you'll get a kick out of this because it's sort of the same thing I went there before. What I want to do is have some local state which says enabled, and make that a formula. When I say local, it's not, as I said, it's not local. Enabled is, yeah, okay, so. But I can, it's more of an ad hoc property, or it's just, these are the only guys that are going to care about the enabled. So enabled is, let's see, the counter is less than 3, gray. So now I can come back up to here and say, and we're going to start having some fun here. Instead of mget me enable blah, 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 we can just say mav enabled. Yep. Model ascending value. Look up for the first widget, including self, that has the enabled property, and use that. So let's see if we get that going. All right. And, well, let's put the tools in the truck and just assume it's working. All right. So we're both, and now we'll just see how it goes. Okay, so what we've done is we've broken out a little bit of state here that'll be very useful to avoid repeating ourselves, and it'll make maintenance a lot easier, avoid bugs as the code changes. And but the point I want to make here is that when I said local, what I meant was not a lot of people actually care about the enabled property of this widget. So it's okay to just have it here. We don't need to put it in a separate store and do all the boilerplate in terms of setting up a subscription and then dispatching transactions. We just make it a function of the counter value. As the counter changes, this thing enables or is not enabled. So that's kind of cool. And at this point, we're going to draw it to a close. You've seen the matrix ability to reach out a short distance to grab the counter. You've seen it reach out a short distance to update the counter. But the principle is the same. These functions like FMU or MAV, they look as search as far as you want, and it's a contextual search, so it's a natural scoping. It's searching out the graph of the application, and again, that's why it's important that the application is its own database. That's part of why that works. So I think that's pretty extensively over the limit. That's we covered a lot of ground, let's just say, and I hope that gave you some idea of what's going to be like as you continue on programming with Matrix and Flutter and Clojure. Cheers.